want to talk about theological reflection for a few minutes. In the Internship 1 course, we use the Stone and Duke book on how to think theologically, and it has some good information related to what is theological reflection. And as we do theological reflection, you'll have several choices that you can use as you apply that and use that within a peer group setting. But Stone and Duke have an interesting comment. They say, they start out with the premise, all Christians are theologians simply because they are Christians. And they talk about baptism as the ordination to ministry for all believers, and thus begins the task of considering the meaning and implications of what happens in our lives. I think another way to look at theological reflection is think in terms of, is looking at life through the eyes of faith. Nothing happens to us that is wasted. Whatever we experience in life, we have the opportunity to reflect on that, to gain insight and understanding from it. And when we're doing theological reflection, we're being a little more focused about that, kind of a laser approach to that, and very intentionally involving ourselves in reflecting on what's happened and what does this mean to us, especially as people of faith. There are a lot of sources of information that are available to us as we do theological reflection. Stone and Duke have a good section where they talk about, they call it the Methodist quadrilateral. I've always referred to it as the Wesleyan quadrilateral, that there are different sources of input for us as we do theology. There's scripture. What can we learn from scripture? Tradition, reason, and experience. Scripture, are the writings that are sacred to us, the things that we build our faith on. Tradition is not a bad term. Tradition is basically what Christians have done over a period of time. And we're very fortunate that we stand at a point where we can look back over 2,000 years of history and see the different ways that Christians have done things. Some of those have been really great and are really helpful to us in understanding the faith and interpreting what's happening to us. Some we might want to say, well, that may have been good at that particular time, but it's not helped me as I'm trying to get a better understanding of how God is at work in this particular setting. But tradition is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be very helpful to us. Reason is important because we need consistency and logic in the way that we build our theological perspective. Sometimes we say we believe this and we believe that, and those are mutually incompatible. If we say, we love God but hate our neighbor, that doesn't work together very well. There are some things we have to understand are inconsistent. So if we have a high concept of God and the brotherhood and sisterhood of all people, the unity of humanity, but we are prejudiced toward a particular group of people, there's an inconsistency there that is illogical. It's not just wrong, it's illogical. And reason helps us to understand the inconsistency there. And then experience. We are involved in life. We are involved in interacting with other people on a daily basis. We have life experiences. And those are things that, on first look, we may say some of those are negative kind of things. But what are we going to learn from that? What are we going to experience from that? And what does that say about how God is at work? So those are different things that contribute to kind of a theological template that we can use as we're looking at the things that happen in our lives. The Stone and Duke talk about, there are two parts to this whole theological reflection thing: theological analysis and theological construction. Theological analysis, kind of the investigative side. We look at what has happened and we kind of break it down. We kind of look at the parts of it. And then in theological construction, we attempt to interpret that. We bring all this back together for some kind of consistent whole. And I may have missed the point here, but I kind of think of this in terms of hermeneutics and homiletics. In hermeneutics, what we're doing is we're taking Scripture and we're trying to understand it. We're looking at all the background information, the context, we look at the word studies, all that kind of thing. We kind of break it down. And then in the homiletic experience, when we're preparing to preach, we bring that all back together in some way. And there is an interpretive aspect to that as we apply it to the situation and to the people where we're preaching. So it's, on one hand, we're kind of, we're cutting things down into smaller parts, and the other thing, we're putting them back together. So that's the two aspects of the whole theological reflection process. So we attempt to get down to, you know, what is this all about? What's going on here in this situation? And then we try to draw from that some kind of meaning that we can use as we minister, as we serve, as we grow as Christians and as believers. So as we talk about the case study and the critical incident and the journal entry and the daily examine, these two aspects are part of all of those things, and we'll discuss that in length in just a moment. So you can cut that, Tyler.